setting new standards in podcast excellence. You have joined the WBT, fully focused on business and taxes. Here is your host, Michael Lodge.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I'm glad you've joined me. So today we had another day of testimony of Ambassador Yovanovitch. That's going to be our subject matter. I'll be right back.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518. Or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
Oh, my goodness. You know, as I'm recording this, the committee is still meeting on impeachment. I had heard enough. I got tired of it. What we basically were hearing today was an HR issue. We had an ambassador who was not liked by her boss, the President of the United States, was relieved of her duties. And along the way, there was a lot of statements that were made, and she didn't like them, and she felt that they were bad and made her feel bad. So what we basically had was an HR issue. We had nothing to do with the letter that brought this into impeachment. The president's, not the letter, but the transcripts of the president's call to the president of the Ukraine. Nothing that she brought to the table today had anything to do with impeachment. Nothing. Zero. All day we had to listen to a bunch of congressmen go over and over and over again how badly she was treated. Now, this is an HR issue. If she, and by the way, she still is an employee of the State Department. She's still working there. In a different capacity. She's no longer an ambassador. She's working at Georgetown University in a professor role. But she's still getting paid. Her salary hasn't come down. And she's still doing work for the State Department. Now, so she wasn't harmed. Whatever the president said, she wasn't harmed. Whatever was written in the newspapers or the Twitter, whatever, nothing harmed her in that way. But what the Democrats were trying to do today was to grandstand and show how badly the president treated this individual. Now, she's still an employee of the State Department, so if she wants to resolve any employment issues, she has the right to employment mediation, so she can call in or request a mediator to come in and mediate the issue so that she feels better. It's done every single time. If she feels so strongly that she has been treated unequally, that she's been treated unfairly, that she has been treated badly by her boss, she can go and have a mediation done, and she can resolve any outstanding issues of how she feels about how she was treated. This was a human resource meeting today. We have to realize that the president can hire and he can nominate people to serve under him, and he can fire them if he feels that they are not fulfilling the work that he wants them to do. He has that right to choose. And he has the right to say anything that he wants to say. This is an at-will employment thing. It's an at-will relationship which means that the president at his will can let somebody go. If you were owning a business and you didn't feel that you were going to get along with this individual and you felt that they would not contribute to your agenda of whatever you were doing to your business, or as the president saw, the agenda of his foreign policy, you as an employer can let them go or move them to another place, which is what happened. She was moved to Georgetown University. She wasn't dismissed. She wasn't fired. No one was fired. I mean, the Democrats kept bringing up the word fire, and no one was fired. She is still working for the United States government under the department. It's just mind-blowing. So the basic focus of the Democrats today was try to make the president look worse and worse. Now, the president didn't help himself by tweeting out remarks on the ambassador or on the process. He probably should have held off on that. But he feels as though that he is being attacked and he has no representation there to cross-examine the witnesses. By the way, in my last podcast, I asked all of you to get out your Constitution and see whether or not if Congress was following the Constitution on the legal side of protecting individuals' rights who has been accused of wrongdoing. The Constitution says that the president has the right to sit down and question those individuals. Unfortunately, under Adam Schiff and the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, they're not letting any of that happen. So I can understand, personally, if I'm being attacked and if I don't have representation there and if I don't have availability, the ability to ask questions of my accuser, then we have no fairness. We have no justice. So I asked you to get the Constitution out and read what it says about our legal rights as Americans. Those same legal rights apply to the president. Now, what has happened is that we have a political takeover of the law. And Adam Schiff has said, no, we're not going to let any of that done. We're not going to even look at the Constitution. He has made up the rules. He won't even let some Republicans talk. He won't let things be let out. He won't let the whistleblower come and who, by the way, started all this. That whistleblower said he knew the conversations based upon somebody else's conversations to the conversation that President Trump had with the president of the Ukraine. That's how it goes. So I'm sorry, we're going to have all this hearsay testimony, then we might as well have the hearsay testimony of the whistleblower. Unfortunately, the whistleblower has been contaminated because the opposition has touched the whistleblower. And that's the problem. So we have a system that has been contaminated. The fairness of hearings and the fairness of applying the constitutional law to legal rights and the fairness of being able to cross-examine those that accuse you has been muddied and contaminated by the act of political desire to overthrow the President of the United States. So what we saw today was a human resource issue that should have been kept in human resources. She should never have been brought before the U.S. Congress and be put through, 5 hours or whatever it is, of testimony of basically about nothing. So if we are going to have fairness in this country, fairness to you, fairness to me, within the overall picture of the legal system and testimonies and being able to cross-examine our accusers and to question them and to look at the documentation, to look at the evidence brought against you. If that is going to be the norm now, is that going to be applied to our legal system. Because what is seen being done in the United States Senate has no comparison to what is legal and just. I've told you before, take off your Democratic hat and take off your Republican hat. And look at this through the eyes of a person like yourself. If you were being attacked, if you were being accused of something, and if you didn't have the right to question your accuser and to look at the documentation that they're presenting against your guilt, because they have come to the conclusion that you are guilty and you have to prove you're innocent. Instead of the Constitution that says very clearly that you are innocent until proven guilty. But we have the Speaker of the House automatically saying that the President is guilty. We have Adam Schiff saying that he is guilty. He is guilty of wrongdoing. You have Swarwell of California saying he is guilty, and he says that every single day. But yet he has not seen all of the evidence. He has not seen, has no evidence been brought forward to show of an illegal act. Nothing has been brought forward. Assumed, accusations made, words used like bribery or intimidation. They use all of the words that you would try to use to build a case, but they've provided no proof that this has even happened. So we have to take this on a legal stance and say, if that was happening to you and me, remember we have our Democratic hats off and we have our Republicans hats off. We're not wearing them anymore. But you and I are sitting across each other as Americans. And we're asking the question, could this happen to me? What would happen if somebody accused me of something and I had no ability to challenge that? That is the point that we should be asking ourselves as Americans. We may hate Trump as hard as possible. You can hate somebody. You can despise somebody. But you can't ignore that they have the same rights as you and I as Americans, where we need to defend ourselves. When people make accusations, when people throw stuff at you, and when people say that you're a traitor, and when people say that you're guilty, and you're not able to defend yourself in any way, shape, or form, how would that affect us? That would destroy us as Americans. So forget about your hate. Forget about how much you despise Trump. But think about the process that's being adopted by the Congress that is so unfair and so unjust and so illegal, because they have pushed the Constitution of the United States to the side. You know, when a city when a city writes a new law, they have to make sure that that new law is in compliance with the Constitution. When the state adopts a new legislation for the state, they have to make sure that it does not overstep the Constitution of the United States. When Congress proposes a law, they have to make sure that it is in compliance and in step with the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution is the basis of our nation. It is the foundation that holds us together. It's the foundation that gives us our liberty. It's the foundation that gives us legal rights when we are oppressed or when we are hit by any type of legal action against us. We have this Constitution that protects us. Protects us to a speedy trial. Protects us and gives us a right to ask questions of our accuser, to be able to see the documentation, how the police come into our homes and issue warrants based upon the law. That's why we have this Constitution to protect us. That's the founders said we need to protect the American people. We don't want it to be like it was in England at the time that they came to the United States, where they were oppressed by a king. They were oppressed by a church. They were oppressed by taxes. They were oppressed by an unjust legal system. So the founders of this nation put together this Constitution and this Bill of Rights that gave us rights to liberty and justice for all. That's why we say those things, liberty and justice for all. But what the Democrats have done, and what Adam Schiff has done, is he has forgotten about those words and put political hate in the place of the Constitution. Now, you and I were in danger because of that. Because if other people see that they can do that, then they can do it to you and me. I request all of you, I beg all of you, really, go to Google, pull up the Constitution of the United States. Look at the Bill of Rights and how it protects us legally. And if you find in your heart that the way that the process of this impeachment is going is not in compliance with the Constitution, then you and I need to hold these politicians accountable for not protecting you and not protecting me. But what we saw today was just an HR complaint. I do mediation work when it comes to employees. And we always have one side of the table, the other side, and each one has a different view of how the employment was treated. The employee has a view, the employer has a view, and we have to come to a middle to resolve it so that we can get on, we can move forward. But when you take an HR issue in the federal government and make it into a political issue, then we have a problem. So I would suggest to the ambassador, go to your HR, ask for an employment mediation, and resolve some issues. You have that right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of day 2 of these impeachment hearings. I feel sorry for Ambassador because she was put through as a political ringer. And she had to endure a lot today. But then again, she fell into the political process. She got enticed to move in and make this political. And she could have said, no, I'm not going to make this political. I have an HR issue. I have an employment issue. I was fired. I don't feel I was fired correctly. I want to have this resolved. And she could have gone to the HR department, asked for a mediation, and got it resolved. Very quietly. So it would not have had to gone out into the press like it is today. Anyway, know your Constitution. Know what your legal rights. If you feel that what's happening during the process of this impeachment is not in compliance with the Constitution, then make your politicians accountable. If you have any questions or comments, just send me a text at 818-252-5682, 818-252-5682. And let's get going. We've got a whole bunch more hearings to go. I really feel, though, that the American public is becoming exhausted with this impeachment. We're not even quite sure exactly what thing they're going to make stick, because we've had a whole bunch of different classifications of what the president did wrong. But they keep forgetting about it, and they keep going to another word and another word and another word and another word. And they provide no evidence of anything. The American people get very weary of politics, especially when they see that it's a dirty type of politics. And we've known from day one, when the president put his hand on the Bible and swore to become the president of the United States, even before then, the Democratic Party had said they were going to impeach him. Before he was even president, they said he was going to be impeached. And on the day he became president, they said, yes, we're going to impeach him. For 3 years, they've been trying. And I think that the American people, we sit back, at least I do, I sit back and I watch this. And I am frustrated and angered by what I see, by what I hear. And what I see is that we have a Congress that is really doing nothing for the American people. And what I hear is a bunch of politicians with their beating on their drums and just sitting there beating. And it's the same beat for 3 years. You become exhausted as an American. How much longer do we have to go through this? How much longer are we going to have to watch these politicians absolutely do nothing? Americans, I'm exhausted. And the more I see of this, the more I get frustrated. I can see why people get upset. I can see why Americans turn their news off because of the negativity all day long. They get tired of seeing a president every single day trying to fight for the life of his presidency. They see a president who continues to work on, continue to try to get things done for the American people, as the other side tries to take him down. Americans get exhausted, tired, worn out. But what we should be is fed up. And we should be putting a stop and sending a very clear message to these members of Congress. We are holding you accountable for everything that you don't do. We are holding you accountable for dividing a nation. Remember, I'm talking to you. We have our Democratic hat off and we have our Republican hat off. We need to hold these politicians accountable. And my friend, we can no longer be divided. We have got to get our nation back on track. Finding ways to help our neighborhoods, to help our schools, to help the homeless, to get these drugs off the streets, to get people back into homes instead of in tents. We need better roads. We need better trade policies. We need individuals who are more accountable for their people that they represent. The other day, I saw something on Facebook that said they wanted to vote. It was from a liberal, far left liberal, who wanted to get all of the Nazis out of Congress. Well, that isn't the right approach. The approach should be to hold everybody, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, accountable for what they're not doing for the United States. If a Democrat is not doing what they say, hold them accountable, get them out of office. If a Republican is not doing what they said they were going to do, hold them accountable and vote them out of office. And I think that we also need to have more, as citizens, we need to have more communication with these members of Congress. We need Right now, what we have is we have taxation without representation because no one's really representing us anymore. They're representing their political party. Because remember, it's all about being in power. So Americans, I've got to end this podcast. Otherwise, I could go on and on. And I don't think you want me to go on and on because I can really go on and on. Anyway, I think probably the best way is to sit back as Americans and make a decision. And that decision is nothing's getting done. We need to hold them accountable. I'll talk with you soon. This is Mike Lodge. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.